Alrighty, folks. Hi, everyone. My name is Natalie Vlatko. My pronouns are she, her. I'm one of the SIG Docs co-chairs, and today is Tuesday, the 22nd of August, 2023. You are here at the bi-weekly SIG Docs community meeting. Big thanks for everyone who's in attendance today and for joining. I'm just going to very quickly grab the agenda and pop that in the chat here for folks who have yet to see it. I've already put a few things in there, but for folks who, if you are a member of the SIG Docs mailing list, you should be able to have access to our agenda and thus be able to jump in and edit and add things as you wish. If you don't have that access, you can join the Google group, and one of us tech leads or chairs are happy to make sure that you get that access ASAP. With today's meeting, we are likely going to have a shorter one. Noted your timing, Nate, that you need to jump off of. And so with that being said, I wanted to welcome everyone and to let you all know that given that this is a Kubernetes meeting, we do abide by the Kubernetes Code of Conduct. That does mean that we want everyone to be respectful and kind to one another. We want to make sure that that is happening not only here in this meeting, but via Slack, via issues and GitHub PRs, in any way that we work together and collaborate. We expect folks to be kind and respectful. However, we know that doesn't always happen. And so if you do have an issue that comes up that requires Code of Conduct committee guidance and information, I do want to let you all know that we do have information in the agenda that if you notice a violation of the Code of Conduct, meeting, Slack, or other communication mechanism, you can absolutely reach out to that committee and your anonymity will be protected. So that email is conduct@kubernetes.io. Feel free to send through your requests, anytime. Any email that you send there doesn't automatically mean that you've kind of filed a report. You're just reaching out to the community to talk to, have a chat and get guidance, and we'll go from there. So as someone who has absolutely used it before, they are a great committee. They've just had some new members come on board. So definitely reach out to those folks if you feel that you need to. Okay, with that being said, again, big hi to everyone. I want to check if there's anyone new on the call today that would like to introduce themselves and to say hi to the community. Anyone at all? You can unmute or go in the chat.
Hi, I'm not really new, but I just wanted to reintroduce myself. I was the documentation lead for 1.25, the 1.25 release, and I just I'm interested in getting involved again with SIG Docs, so just wanted to say hello again, and I am looking forward to working with everyone.
Amazing. Welcome back, Kristen. It's great to have you. It's also, I want to actually just kind of point out, if you don't mind, and highlight the fact that it's you're a great example of folks who, understand what their load needs to be and can kind of step back if needed and then come back when you know that you've got the capacity, which is great. Really healthy way to kind of approach a lot of open source work. So I just want to kind of celebrate that and thank you again for jumping back in and wanting to help out. Anyone else on the call wanted to say hi and introduce themselves? Totally understand if folks don't want to on the call itself. You can absolutely, if you wish, jump into the agenda and just add in your name under new contributors or new with an asterisk for folks who are returning. Or you can also add anything in the chat throughout any time at the throughout the specific meeting as well. All right. Giving folks another small chance. No, okay, we're going to move on to the next part of our agenda. Thanks, Kristen. Great to have you back. What I would like to do now is just go through a couple of the updates and reminders that we have for SIG Docs that, as it happens. For those who are new or returning and need a reminder, you may know that in Docs we do have a specific program that we call PR wrangling. And what that means is that every week we have one of our approvers who is kind of on shift to push our PRs and contributions forward to get that kind of machine running in terms of contributions coming in and out. Sometimes that means, which is often the case when I'm on, closing a lot of PRs that are stale and just no one's working on them. That's also part of that too. But this week's PR Wrangler is Nate, who's on the call right now. Thanks so much, Nate. We've got Anna Young on for next week. And then the week after, we have Ray Lahano, one of our other docs co-chairs. For those who are approvers on the call, please make sure you jump in and look at the PR Wrangler shifts so that you know when yours are. And for those approvers who don't have capacity or you need a shift kind of replaced, just reach out to one of us docs chairs as well, and we can absolutely help you with that too. Okay, our agenda is kind of semi-light today. I'm going to do as little talking as I can, but I do have a bit of an update around a release 129. For folks who may or may not know, we did just do a release for Kubernetes. 1.28 is just now recently live. And for folks in the community call a couple of weeks back, you would have seen that we did have a couple of interesting challenges in docs and quite a few things needing to be merged and worked on a little bit later. And so we did have a red status update. And so what I wanted to kind of point out is that us in the SIG docs leadership will be attending the 1.28 retro to kind of discuss some of those challenges. And I want to kind of be very transparent about that with the community here, and then hopefully then report back the results, or should I say the discussions and possible outcomes of that chat with the community here for this. And so within that vein of trying to generally kind of just improve communication and status and updates and help with the release, I've put in information about the upcoming release here for everyone to see. So firstly, shadow applications are open for 1.29 for anyone in the community that's interested in being a shadow, either in docs or comms, which we care about very much so here in SIG docs, but in any other part of the release team, it's also welcome. Feel free to jump in you can see Xander's post and SIG release, which I've linked to in the agenda, and then I've also linked to the issue, which I'll quickly copy and paste here into our chat, the issue where a lot of the leads are being nominated as well, which is just here. And to that end, we do have our docs and comms leads nominated as well. So I want to note firstly that Priyanka Sagu is the 1.29 release team lead, with Xander, whose surname I can never pronounce. I'm sorry, Xander, if you're listening to this, with Xander being this release's emeritus advisor. And then Kat Cosgrove, who was a shadow for 1.28 docs. Kat will be the 1.29 docs lead, with Carol Valencia, a former docs lead, going to be the 1.29 comms lead as well. And so as a note, you may be seeing both Kat and Carol in our upcoming meetings quite often very soon, because us in docs, we're going to request that those comms and docs leads for release come to our meetings as a requirement of their role going forward, so that we can try and make sure that communication and help and kind of issues that might come up with certain kind of things that are blocked with docs or comms, that we can help resolve them in this meeting with the community together. So I want to kind of put that out there, that those are names we are hopefully going to expect to be here in the comms in the docs meetings going forward for this release. And if you've got any questions about any of that, feel free to reach out to myself or Divya or Ray as your co-chairs. But hopefully more to come in terms of what happens from the retro for 1.28 and what else we'll be reporting on for the next release. That was a lot of me talking. Any questions or comments there before we move on? Nope. Okay. All right. We're going to move on then. Thanks so much for bearing with me, folks. And we're going to move on to, I want to move on to the first kind of issue in PR that's been popped in here. I will do so specifically copy and paste here into the chat by Tim, who I don't think is on the call today, unfortunately. But if anyone does have an idea of information that they want to share from Tim of having shared this, or jump in with any idea, feel free to do so. This is I'm unfortunately back-to-back meetings today, and this is the first I'm seeing of this specific PR that Tim has added in. The feature gate descriptions. Okay. So it looks like what we'll need to do is further review And there's a couple of discussions here, specifically from the former docs lead as well for 128 as well. Okay. Right. So what I think what I believe Tim is wanting is the community to generally discuss whether this is something that if we want to make this change, given that the 128 release is out and we're in that kind of middle ground period between releases kind of beginning with 129. Now would be the time to jump in. What I would request maybe, Nate, given your this week's PR wrangler, if you wanted to jump in and give us your thoughts, either now or in the PR later on, that might be really helpful too. I also
I haven't read through this just yet, so I'd be hesitant to give my thoughts right this moment. But I would be happy to. I'd be happy to take a look at it. I've done some versioning stuff on other sites as well, so this could be this could be in my wheelhouse. So I will take a look at it. I've subscribed to the PR just to remind myself to take a look at it as well. So yeah.
Perfect, great. So I'm just going to pop in the notes here just so Tim knows that we've kind of had a chat here, that you're going to jump in and have a look at that and give some more, let's say, specific opinions and views once you've been able to kind of dive in and have a look at the PR itself, which is great. Thanks so much.
Yep.
I will write better notes once I'm no longer kind of hosting the meeting, but just as a quick reminder for me to just expand on that in the notes there. Okay. Is there, given that was the only issue / PR kind of listed in today's agenda, is there any other issue or PR that folks here on the call wanted to bring up or address before we moved on to the discussion points we've got listed? Going once, going twice. Okay. Thanks, folks. I do now want to jump over to the discussion points, and I do know that Abby has popped one in as the first point to discuss, looking for specific ideas around our doc sprint for KubeCon, the Contributor Summit in North America. Abby, take it away.
Yes, hopefully my internet holds. I'm in a different location than normal, so hopefully I can get through this. So we're looking to hold a doc sprint at the upcoming Contributor Summit. So a doc sprint will be an in-person event where we all sort of sit down and work on an issue or some sort of task within the repo. So it's we're looking for ideas for this. And it's an ideal idea for this would be something that we can use, have a lot of people working on and contributing to. So something that could be kind of broken up into smaller pieces, or in the past, we've done something that affects a lot of pages, so people could take a small section and make a contribution. In the past, I think we've maybe done some bug hunts or general issue management stuff. So I just wanted to first update the folks on the call here and in the community that we will be doing a talk sprint at the upcoming Contributor Summit. So if you're able to attend in person, please look out for that on the agenda. And then we're also looking for ideas of what things to do and work on when we can all get together in person and hack away at the site. So let me know here if you have any ideas, and I'll also post in the Slack channel. And all right, that's my update.
Great, thanks, Abby. I do want to note for folks on the call, Abby actually organized our last doc sprint that was a huge success, where we looked at the page weights specifically that we had across the site, which was really great. Having attended, I was blown away, and I think I'm so excited for Abby to kind of be holding the reins for the next doc sprint. So ideas welcome. Something that it doesn't have to be a huge mini project, but something that a few folks in a room together can hack on and work on together, so that we can kind of solve a manageable, let's say, challenge maybe, or like interesting thing, improvement that we want to make across docs, or maybe it's only for a localization area as well. That's okay too. Little thing, every idea kind of is worthwhile and counts. So definitely reach out to either Abby, myself, or any of the other leads, and we can kind of get those ideas in one place. Awesome. Any other questions or comments on the doc sprint update?
Just glad to see we're doing it again.
Same, yes. We will be, this will be in Chicago for folks who are unaware. The North American KubeCon, Cloud Native Con will be in Chicago for 2023 in early November. And so the doc sprint is unfortunately still going to be something that is mostly efficient in person. We've still yet to kind of unlock how we can do something virtually that is successful, but that could be something that is also worthwhile us kind of discussing at this doc sprint to figure out how we can do something virtual and a bit more inclusive that way. Cool. Thanks, Abby. Thanks so much for that. The next discussion point is technically mine, but I know Robert is on the call too. I wanted to kind of put down and remind everyone to add thoughts to the generative AI GitHub discussion that we have. And Robert, if you'd like to kind of jump in and just give folks a reminder of why we are having that discussion in the first place, happy to give you the floor.
Oh, thank you. We're doing it now?
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure. Hey, so gang, just a reminder, we've in the past few weeks, we've been discussing how can we use generative AI to help us in documentation. In that discussion, lots of great ideas. And so to kind of help move the discussion along, I did a PR, talked to Jeffrey and Nate, and the idea was, okay, well, let's look at blog posts that we don't have translation for and see if we can do that. I'm a big fan of doing things manually before automating. And so it's an example in the PR, and I will put that right here in the chat. Nope. That's the other one. Hold please, I'm getting there. Okay, I got it. There we go. So what this, a couple of files, one of them, it's not going to show up on the Netlify preview because it's the dates in the future. But I went through and got a one in the past, translated that using GPT-4. This is manual translation. Had some challenges around markdown formatting, but just kind of a, you know, this is an idea right here. Not saying that this is the end all be all, but just showing kind of what we're thinking from the LF perspective on, okay, how can we jump in and help? Can we provide access to tooling, workflow, those sorts of things that the team wants to use? We're going to have a really tough time finding a partner out there, a vendor, to provide exactly what the SIG docs is going to really want. But I think it's worthwhile to just try a little bit and to see what happens, see if there's some value there. Good feedback on, hey, we don't want to crush maintainers. Somebody from the Spanish localization side of the house chimed in. That was great feedback. Tim came in, examples of like, well, this is how we're doing it with other languages right now, putting in, you know, the English it was originally translated from. Okay, valuable. But just wanted to just put something out there to look at. Fully expect it to be shot down, but just as an idea of like, okay, we could do this. Sometimes when you really want to, what's that? One of our many laws on the internet, if you want an answer to a question, you got to post the wrong answer and have people reply with the correct one. I think that's what I'm doing here.
Yeah. So I think my first comment, Robert, is that this PR is a surprise to me, given our earlier discussions where I think there was a few folks who were very concerned about using any generative AI for translations. And now the first kind of, let's say, kind of show PR of what we could possibly do is a translation one. So I'm a little confused as to why that was the first possible kind of use case, given that there was some discussions around, is there a way to look at some low-hanging fruit of small trio edits PRs that come in that could actually get flagged by this kind of tooling as, yes, this spelling doesn't match the dictionary, and yet the one PR that has been submitted to change this does, so we can automatically kind of pop that in and approve and whatever. So that would be my general feedback, but I do know that
Sure.
I'm going to jump into the kind of discussion, help with that too. And so I will say I do absolutely empathize with our Spanish team who've come in and kind of chatted about that before, especially because we've had issues in the past with exactly this happening with our Italian localization, where coming in from an LLM that actually were not exactly helpful at that time. So
it was helpful.
Right. So I guess my one question would be that what's the difference between, let's say, that scenario and this one now?
We, when Jiffy and I chatted, and Nate, the three of us were chatting, absolutely, like, man, if we could just have this run through Grammarly, and just tell us what was wrong. Well, the problem is that Grammarly doesn't have an exposed API. There are some ways of tying into it, and but they're all hacks and they're violating terms of service. And so this was the one, like, okay, this seemed doable. The thing that you were laying out, if you've got ideas on implementation, like, okay, here's the API I want to use. We can tie into that. Well, then great, let's do it. But I was struggling with something to actually show that did that. So you happy to take feedback and just like, no, use this service over there, something a little bit more finer granular detail, like, no, this is the service we want to use. Oh, okay, great.
So I think the crux of this, of what like Tim and our Spanish team are kind of like looking at here, is the viewer load that something like this would create, where so firstly, SIG docs are also the whole Kubernetes project, but specifically SIG docs, we have a small amount of reviewers and approvers right now. It's a huge load on them. And so with that, new PRs that are coming in that need to be reviewed, despite their size, just the amount that could come in from, let's say, a process like this would create a lot of reviewer load and eventual burnout. And so my wonder would be, is that using something like this that doesn't actually post a PR, but posts something that a localization team can eventually themselves create as a PR. So it's kind of creating, maybe it's or maybe it's something else that actually doesn't create something to review in the pile of PRs that we're doing, but helps to kind of accelerate some of that work, but still has a human being the reviewer before a PR is kind of made. That could be an option, but I feel like like Tim is suggesting, the problem of its scaling is the current issue right now. And so
absolutely. The last thing we want to do is say, look, we're helping and doing the other thing. Very sensitive to that. The purpose here was just to show, like, okay, this is what it could look like. And we're having the conversation now on, okay, well, how are we going to implement? And that's kind of a good thing, where we're actually kind of working through, because previous to this kind of draft PR, and I do not expect this to get, so PR wranglers, don't start working on this, but ignore it. But just wanted to show, like, show the team, like, okay, this is what it could look like, in hopes of getting feedback of, like, all right, well, how does this really fit into the workflow? That's good.
So really appreciate the work on that. I would say, unfortunately, not a fit for the workflow right now. There needs to definitely
no doubt,
for sure. And I would also, I understand the idea of what is it that we can show. I think it might be worthwhile, and I wonder if you getting in the room with Nate, with Jiffy, with other folks at the CNCF. I know Tim Pepper and specifically was also part of the discussion, and Ray as well, of folks who could possibly help you architect something that is more along the lines of, let's say, helping out on the contributor experience side, where it's catching small trivial edits that can kind of go into a certain pile of what new contributors can easily review and jump in and help out with, versus, let's say, a larger translation file that then is kind of like piled onto like a small amount of people who already have a lot of work to do, things like this, in order to be able to like present something to show, as you've mentioned. On the translation side of things, I'm just a little concerned that constantly focusing on that as a possible solution area actually is giving the wrong messaging, which is that we actually need more native speakers to do this work and not the LLM specifically.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I absolutely see that.
Cool, great. That was me and you talking a lot, Robert. I want to open the floor and make sure if anyone else has any kind of suggestions or comments. I can see Keegan, you've jumped in here. I'll happily read that out if you like.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, cool. So PR triggers called a private instance. Output from CA is optionally used by the people. So syntax, formatting style, trained and tuned to our docs could be a good target. I agree. But private instance is limited to our docs scope, tuned for syntax in our requirements. It can be done with Azure OpenAI. That's true. The challenge is to get the data assembled and the cost of the private instance. Another important note from lately, AI generated content cannot be copyrighted per recent court ruling. Can you that court ruling? Can you tell me what country, place that's in? Because we are global.
Right, in the United States. I can get a link. Just a moment.
Sure, thank you. You're right. I would say you've brought up a really, really good point, Keegan, about cost of possibly running something. And I guess, Robert, I'd like to kind of throw that to you. What is there budget for us doing something that Keegan is suggesting where we can possibly have a private instance that trains only on our data, for example?
Yes, what I can do is go and get it for free. So I like that budget. So what I can do is, leading strategic partnerships at LF, when, SIG Doc says, oh, we want to do this, we want to use this, we've tried it, great. And I can have a conversation with Microsoft on donating this. So answer is yes. If y'all say, hey, we want to do this, great. Then I do what I do, which is bring home resources for our projects and foundations.
Yeah, I think what we would need to do is probably that decision is largely not just up to docs, probably up to overall K8s, but at the same time having a playground so that we can make a decision, I think is actually important too. So even something small that we could possibly test the viability of something like this, is that something that you can also possibly get for free, or how would that work?
Well, who approves that, the budget? How does that work with CNCF and Kubernetes?
Yeah. So that would be through the steering committee, I believe. And that's something that we docs would approach them to say, hey, we're in talks with LF around, possibly using generative AI and possibly playing around with something there. At the same time, we can't make decisions about what we want to use or do without testing and working on something as a maybe that might require some kind of either funding or okaying on the budget side, and we would take that to the steering committee. So I think with that, we would need to kind of go to steering together, you on the LF side, us as SIG docs. I guess, Nate, I would love for you to kind of give your opinion here of do you think that would be do you also think it would be viable as also someone who's been kind of involved in these conversations?
Yeah, I think my understanding is any budget has to go through the steering committee. So I think that's absolutely the right place to go. And it's a matter of, again, sort of showing the value. So again, with these experiments that we're doing, trying things, saying, hey, this is going to be something that's potentially worthwhile. I think that's sort of I'm not sure that I'm adding much, but I agree that the steering committee would be the path.
Right. I'm just sorry, doing note taking at the same time because
this means a lot more when it comes from the SIG to the steering committee. I don't want the perception of internal LF telling other folks what to do. So if this team decides, hey, this SIG wants to go and explore something, and the steering committee says, okay, sounds good, they know how to loop me in. So the CNCF staff, project managers know how to say, okay, Robert, get to work.
Okay. I think the one thing that I would want to kind of specifically call out is that we want to we're doing this from the basis of being able to explore and make a decision about what the SIG wants with this tooling.
Yeah.
And I think I want to also highlight in the discussion that we do want to kind of highlight the fact that, you know, on the translation front at the moment, we don't think this is scalable or viable given our own review account and current contributor experience. But it could lead to that in future, but we still need to try things out and kind of experiment
No doubt.
more, you know, lower hanging fruit in terms of like how kind of contributor experience can be improved with smaller PRs, trivial edits, etc.
Well, we've got a Microsoft representative on the steering committee, right?
I am actually.
So that would be an easy ask.
So it wouldn't. So I would have to say it wouldn't, because they may not be the person in Microsoft to ask about, you know, getting access and getting info.
Well, I could. Well, when I get the green light and y'all want to, you know, steering committee says okay, I can figure out how to make it work. I'm confident.
Okay, sure. 1 sec.
So then what do we see as the next steps? Do we continue our discussion on the discussion boards there and find more ideas? Or Robert, do you want to take a look at one of the ideas that are already there and take another pass at doing another demo? Or what do we feel like our next steps
Well,
are?
my hope is, to be honest with you, that somebody in this space, you know, is going to look at this and say, well, Reeves, this is terrible. This is the worst PR I've ever seen. It needs to be this way. And so, you know, in my experience, doing a thing that is pretty bad normally encourages folks to do it the right way. And I'm kind of hoping that somebody else would jump in and say, no, this is the way it should be done. That's my hope.
Okay. Just to make sure I'm understanding correctly, you mean the PR that you've already raised with the translation?
Well, I'm hoping, like, instead of going back and saying, well, is this the thing? Is this the thing? You know, to really, you know, kind of have some other folks that have a lot more experience with documentation than I do say, like, well, no, we should do this. Let's try this. Is there, it'd be really cool if, like, somebody else, that it's just not me doing it, because I'm afraid that we're going to get more of the same, which is substandard.
Gotcha. And when you say doing it, you mean like you're looking from the community to have actual tangible demo or examples of what the tooling could possibly achieve for the SIG? Is that correct?
Yeah. If instead of, I think it'd just be, our chances of success are really, really low if it's just me doing PRs. Yeah.
Gotcha. I totally understand. And I think what I want to say is that I think the elephant in the room here is that you definitely need help in figuring out how to make this possible tooling as successful as possible for the SIG. On our end, we are so busy and overwhelmed with the work we are already doing. Valid. It is very hard for us to already put in, I think,
totally valid.
A bit extra for possibly figuring out how to use this tooling. So I think what could be a next step to answer your question, Nate, is putting a call out in the discussion to say, okay, does anyone have ideas, of something that we could build that would actually be beneficial and also has the time to actually build something out and show that specific idea out there? Because unfortunately, Robert, I think what we're running into is that there's a lot of great momentum and drive and, you know, interest in doing this, but no one has time or capacity.
Yeah, well said. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think if we ask, so what I'll put this in the notes in a moment, but I've noted your specific feedback, Rolf and Keegan, in our notes too. But that basically, and Keegan, I might have a call out if you don't mind jumping into the discussion to put in the idea of, hey, what if we had a private instance, you know, to be able to train the LLM on our specific, you know, style guide to be able to, you know, pull up certain kind of PRs that require changes that adhere to our style guide or something like this, if you want to jump into discussion to put that there, maybe that could be something that we could tack on of, is anyone interested in trying to possibly build something like this? Does someone want to kind of take this on, and so on, and other ideas to that end, so that we can get some examples of what could be in use? Because it looks like, and I'm obviously biased because I have the same opinion, but it looks like the translation route isn't something that SIG docs can go with at the moment.
Okay.
Purely because of the scale and the issue, the scale of that on our current reviewers and approvers right now, we just don't have enough. But it doesn't mean that it can't be a future thing that we look into once we have a lot more robust group of people being able to dedicate time and work.
Valid.
Yeah. Cool. Anyone else want to jump in with ideas or additions to some of the discussion that we've got going on now? Okay, so as a quick roundup of that, I want to let folks know that the action item from this is that we want folks to jump into the GitHub discussion. Feel free to even tag Robert in there if you wish, so that he's getting the pings on that too. Thanks, Keegan, that you'll add that as well. I believe the discussion was linked up earlier, but I'll just quickly grab it again for you. We want ideas that folks will have, that not only ideas, but if you possibly have a desire to work on something that could be an interesting demo or from some of the ideas that are either being spoken about or your own. And if you've got the capacity, put your hand up in that discussion and tag Robert, and that could be something that we could kind of try and work on. For the end of being able to possibly get, maybe, let's say, some kind of approval on the steering committee side to have a budget or an okay to have some kind of training area or private instance or something where we could actually work on something in a way that produces some kind of results for us, that we can see what tooling could be made and useful. All right. Thanks, Robert. Thanks again for persevering with this. Beauty of open source is the people, but the beauty of open source is people that don't have a lot of time. So
I work at LF. I know. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much. I will a note for everyone following the note taking in the agenda. I'm going to jump in afterwards and add on all these comments. But anyone else that is at the end of our agenda, anyone else have anything to add to this or any other topics they'd like to bring up today?
I just gave a presentation on using generative AI at Red Hat. The bottom line, if I gave you a TLDR, it would be simply AI authored content is not copyrightable. You can use AI in an assistive role. And if you are using AI generated content in your copyrighted documentation, you have to track exactly what is human generated or human authored versus AI generated, because you cannot register you cannot register copyright for content that contains AI generated content. It's a problematic thing. If you have no tolerance for legal risk, then the takeaway is don't use generative AI at all. If you're like me and you think that there's a middle ground, the solution is to author your content, use generative AI to modify or improve your content, and then thoroughly revise and edit it at the end, and keep notes demonstrating that process.
Great. I'm just trying to write those notes in the agenda here, Rolf. Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's okay. I know I'm talking a little bit fast. I can
Sorry,
pop notes into the agenda.
I was just going to drop, and then that's such an interesting couple of points that I'm going to be late for my next thing. Do we know the interaction between AI and CC by 4? Because I don't like, because we do have a copyright, and there are certain things like marketing and rather trademark stuff is sort of managed by the CC. But do we know for something that is open source, right? Or again, Creative Commons by attribution or something along those lines. Do we yet know what the copyright implications are for that? Is that more applicable to what we're dealing with, or is that something else?
So I'm not a legal expert,
Fair.
but when I was looking at that, a similar question in the Red Hat documentation, which is both copyrighted and licensed under Apache 2.0 for others to reuse. It's very similar to CC by 4. And the two are not exclusive. Basically, the permissive licensing that you've just mentioned is you granting permission to others to use your copyrighted content. And that granting permission is an essential part of the copyright process. What's not allowed under copyright is unpermissioned use. And when you encounter that, you have to defend your copyright. Otherwise, you erode the strength of your claim to that content. Yeah.
Interesting. That's actually, we do have a couple of lawyers on staff. Let's see if I may run that past them just as a hypothetical sort of, maybe not so hypothetical, but as an interesting question. I may or may not be able to report back just yet, because I know that we are working on, I believe we are working on a sort of CNCF-wide opinion on AI and things like that, but I don't think we've got that out just yet. So I can't say this is CNCF opinion, but I'm curious to hear what other folks have been hearing and researching and whatnot in this space. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
And now I really do need to go. I'll talk to you folks later. Have a good one. Bye.
Great. Thanks, Ralph. I think I am also equally interested, and I think the question of copyright is important because it's generally important for the project across its different markets and different places that it's accessed, but also in the interest of open source too, and how we're licensed and how that works legally as well. So that's super important. Thank you for sharing. Hopefully I've done some of your points justice. Feel free to jump into the agenda later on if you need to add anything else. Apologies for that if I've missed parts
Not
of
at
that.
all. Okay, sure.
Awesome, thank you. I think also I've added in some of the links that yourself and Keegan have also added in around copyright there too, and the US court case info around content for AI that cannot be copyrighted. And I just want to kind of repeat here what I've written, which is basically possible solution is we author content, have AI help improve it, humans come in at the end and do the polishing, and that as a process is documented as to how we actually work.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
And equally, what you absolutely never want to do is just give a prompt, get a bunch of AI generated content and plop that into your copyrighted content without tracking it, because then your entire body of content becomes polluted.
Right. I was about to say, yeah, there's no longer a separation between what's copyright and what's AI, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. It's actually very similar to how our third-party content works, where we have to very purposely kind of jump in and log when third-party information and content is actually in our docs too. So if we can find a very similar way to describe that and like document that for our contributors in a way that they already know about in terms of our third-party content, that could be also a useful way to help explain to the world as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. We are almost at time, and it's very rare that our meetings go an hour long, but lately they have been. And so I just want to make sure that anyone who wants to jump in and give another comment on this specific topic has the means to do so. Feel free to speak up now.
So I don't know if this would logistically work, and it might not fit into when people want to work on it, but is this something that we could do as like a little hackathon or something at the doc sprint to have people work on some of these concepts or ideas we have for AI, and how it could look within the community and for the docs? Maybe it's something to think about doing, like a little hackathon, or I don't really know how it would look out logistically. I just thought that might be some dedicated time that we can get community folks together to talk about this and work on different concepts to get some PRs up or whatever.
Yeah, I really like that idea as a purposeful, like trying to actually get folks who are coming to the doc sprint and then they have that time and that capacity dedicated to work on something. I think that's a really awesome idea. If you don't mind, Abby, maybe that's something to also put in the GitHub discussion as a possible suggestion of this is when one of these ideas could be realized and we could jump in and work together on that. I think that's a great idea.
Okay, cool. I'll do that.
Cool, for sure. Because that way I will want to say that folks will then start thinking about an idea that possibly can have demo quality or some kind of realization in the constraints of we're at a doc sprint for 4 hours. What can we produce or show that how this tool could be helpful for us? And that's a really good way for folks to kind of really kind of contextualize an idea that could, you know, and have like a healthy constraint as well. Cool.
Yeah,
Thanks
for
so
sure.
much.
I'll do that.
Awesome. Thank you. One last call out for any more comments on this topic. Okay, I'm going to take that as a no. A big thank you to everyone who's come in and participated today. Really grateful for your ideas and participation and energy, however that form comes up for you. And feel free to, for those of folks who I was taking notes on behalf, if you want to jump into the agenda and edit some of those, that's completely okay. A big call out just once again to jump back into the GitHub discussion for further ideas that you may have that you also maybe have capacity to possibly work on and possibly work on at the doc sprint that's going to be happening at Contrib Summit. That's a great idea coming out of Abby. That would be great. Robert, that also gives you a decent time frame of we might have something to show by November, let's say, and so on. So that could be something that we could work on, and we know the steering committee is going to be there at KubeCon, so we can kind of get a lot of those conversations happening in parallel.
I'll be there.
Awesome. Okay. Big thanks, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed the rest of your day, afternoon, evening, wherever you may be in the world. Thanks for joining SIG Docs, and we'll see you around next time. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.